Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Ananta Prabhu asked me to say a few words to the Brahmacharis who may be finding the sunny weather difficult time, no doubt. The Brahmachari takes the vow to not interact with women on the sexual platform and as little as possible on any platform. And in the modern Western world, the whole society is geared towards sexual interaction. And in the summer, in the Western world, the women are dressed in a manner, many of them, especially the younger and prettier ones, are dressed in such a way as much of their bodies are exposed, which is agitating to the minds of men. They're deliberately trying to agitate the minds of men. That's the condition of modern women. But the Brahmachari is supposed to remain unagitated. It's difficult, no doubt. Some of you have been monks or brahmacharis for many years, which is an achievement in this modern world. How is it possible? How is it possible that a young man can avoid the charms of women who are more... Sometimes you'll find, if you're going on book distribution, the women are almost ready to just throw themselves on top of you. Almost literally. How can a monk avoid this? Well, for those of us who are not on the platform of pure spontaneous devotional service to Krishna, which is the real solution, this real brahmachari, yadavadi mama, what is it? Krishna padaravinda, mama cheta Krishna padaravinda, navanava rasa dhamma nyudyanta rantamasid. Tadavadhi bata nari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukha vikara sushtu nishtivanam cha. Srila Prabhupada would quote this, that since I've been taking ever new pleasure in Krishna, since that time, and relishing at every moment the rasas of remembering Krishna, serving Krishna. So whenever the thought of Nari Sangam, sex, enters my mind, my lips curl with distaste and I spit at the thought. So for those who are not on that platform, Jnana Yoga is required. Just remembering that after all, it is a bag of bones, says Shankaracharya's approach. Mangsa Vikara, what are you saying? It's just a transformation of meat. Nari stana bharam nabhidesham, he says. Yes, the full breasts of a woman and her waist, they're very attractive. Maga, don't go. You should know it's just a transformation of meat. And that's one part of Jnana Yoga to consider. I mean, underneath the skin, it's ghastly. Another consideration is that what is the actual result? Okay, let's take my lusty desire to its natural conclusion. I become entangled with a woman, and so much problem. And then your spiritual life your brahmachari life is finished. So there's Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. They're not there interrelated. Bhakti Yoga means if we're actually getting a taste from performing our activities in devotional service, then we won't be attracted to this. We're getting something better. If you have the life of hearing and chanting about Krishna, preaching Krishna consciousness in the association of devotees, and then what are you going to get from this miserable life of, what's that, in Thai they say, Mi Nung, Mi Pu Ying, something like that. I can't remember the pronunciation. The pronunciation is very important. Anyway, in Thai language they say, if you have money, you have a woman. Which means if you don't have money, you don't have a woman. It's all materialistic. So you can practically see, have a look in the faces of the sense enjoyers all around you. And look at the devotees. Is there a difference? Of course. Those who are indulging their senses, they have all opportunity. All the men of your age, they're all engaging in sex. And they all look miserable. That's what they get. And the devotees, they're controlling their senses and surrendering their lives to Krishna. And the more we do that, the more blissful we become. So there's the practical result. Alright, I'm not going to say much because the principles are clear. It's just a matter of putting it into practice. You can read my Brahmachari book if you like also. Any questions? Chant. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Call out to Krishna. Krishna save me. There's a question.
Sometimes, although we know what is right, what is wrong, but the intelligence is so...
Yeah, so that's the same question that Arjuna asked. Ata kena prayukto yang papam charati purushaha anichan apivarshnaya balamiva niyojita. Arjuna said, well, I know that it's wrong, but still, I don't want to do wrong, but still I do wrong. Why? Krishna said, it's just, what's the answer? Who knows? What's the next verse? Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajo Guna Samadhi. So Krishna gives direction how to overcome that. By knowledge. So we know what's right and we know what's wrong, but still we're trying to do wrong. So we have to perform sadhana bhakti, cultivation. Keep on cultivating and be careful. One of Maya's, among her many tricks, is the trick of making someone think that now I don't have to be careful. Practicing, now you think I'm safe? I remember many years ago, there was one of the first major floods in Mayapur. Jai Jagaraj told us a story. That there was one, in the flood, now the flood comes and washes away everything. He came to a tree, and it's just like, the tree is very high and there's just a few branches above the water. So this man, he's sheltering in one tree and shivering in the cold. And there's a snake, a cobra, wrapped around the next branch. So he's there for a few days with the cobra looking at him from time to time. But he's got nowhere to go. He's trapped on the tree. So he's there for a few days and nights, shivering and wondering if the cobra is going to bite me, because any time they can bite you. So eventually a boat came to rescue him. So he got out of the boat, and after a few days sitting on the tree with the cobra, they're both in a difficult situation, trapped, and he thought, we're friends now. So he thought he'd say bye. He tapped it to say bye-bye. The cobra bit him and he died. So it's like that, Maya. We think, it's okay now. Everything's okay. Now I'm saved. Just I'm reading these stories from Iraq, from Parthasarathi Prabhu. He sends these stories. He said, I'm going to be discharged in a few days, but you're in a war. He's survived for 18 months, but he still has like a few days to go. He said, so you don't know, he could still be Hare Krishna. We pray that he won't be, but when you're in a war zone, you're never safe. There's another story. This Rommel, you've heard of him? He was the most famous German. No, not Rommel. Well, that's one example. He was working for Hitler, and then on Hitler's order, he had to commit suicide. But then the other one, Patton, Patton led the American forces in the D-Day invasion of Normandy, and he was in so heavy battles and all this. Then the war finished, and then shortly after the war finished, he was driving on a road in Germany. He was in a car crash and was killed. He survived all the wars and just died just after that in a car crash. So Maya's like that. You think everything's okay? You're in trouble. Yes, Hare Krishna.
In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we read that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave different advices to Brahmana Kurma.
Different advice is actually the plural of the plural of advice is advice. Yeah. To Kurma Brahmana and to. Yeah. He told Kurma Brahmana stay here. Well, he was already married, it seems, whereas Raghunath Bhatta wasn't. Or Raghunath Das, you're talking. Yeah. But Raghunath Bhatti gave different. Raghunath Das, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu encouraged him to leave home. Kurma, he told him, you stay at home. And Raghunath Bhatti said, you stay at home until your parents die and then you come. Specifically because they are Vaishnavas. So, different advice for different people, according to their situation.
Sometimes we see that some brahmachari has a difficulty with something. How can, or someday one is up.
Brahmachari is up one day, down the next. If it goes on for a long time like that, then he's not fit to be in the brahmachari ashram.
How should we, other brahmacharis should respond?
How should what, sorry?
Other brahmacharis?
Respond?
Yeah, how to help him or how to...
Well, you have to see the individual. It's very difficult to give general guidelines. Just preach to him about the glories of devotional service. This is Maya. But again, it's difficult. Even different people have different styles of... So, in general, you can preach, speak the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. It's always relevant. Give them prasadam. It's always important. There's something interesting. There's nothing to directly connect with Brahmacharya, but it's connected with preaching to individuals. In Australia, there was one devotee came to Prabhupada and said, I have so many doubts about things in the Bhagavatam, and these descriptions in the Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada said to him that, well, you don't bother about that. You just take the parts you can accept and you go on with that for now. Interesting, huh? That's how he dealt with him. Well, you find what you like in Krishna consciousness and take that. Of course, that's not an ultimate instruction. Ultimately, we have to accept everything in Bhagavatam. But Srila Prabhupada, in that circumstance, advised that devotee like that.
Can you say something about the importance of friendship amongst brahmacharis?
Yeah. But my attitude to friendship and relationships is, instead of spending lots of time, thinking, getting on the mental platform about it, do service together. And in service there are struggles, and struggling together makes friendship. It's just like the soldiers in a war. They have a good bond because they're facing a common enemy. They're facing death together, so they can do anything for each other. So like that, struggling to serve the Sankirtan mission, that makes friends. Otherwise, all this looking at each other and smiling, it's useless. It comes automatically if we're striving for the goal of fulfilling the Sankirtan mission. that comes automatically. And in that friendship, they may be calling each other bad names and even all that kind of stuff. Of course, among devotees, we don't do it that much. We say, "Hey, you're in Maya," it's all upset. That may be there also. The sign of a close friendship is not that you're always talking to each other nicely, but you can sometimes, speak bad things, and the friendship goes on. You can speak openly, and then the person accepts it because it's coming from a friend. You find sometimes in Mahabharata that Bhima was criticizing Yudhishthira like this. They're close. All right? Want to say anything? Lalit, Govind?
Maybe you can something about this possibility that Brahmachari also in this day can thinking about long life Brahmachari.
Lifelong Brahmachari, yeah.
Because nobody is there to think about this, because everyone just somehow starts.
Well, the propaganda is that everyone has to get. There's no use to be a brahmachari. You all have to get married sooner or later. But it's not necessarily true. You're married? No. Were married? No. So it is possible. There are not many in the West. Most of them took sannyas. That's what happens. If you hang in long enough, they give you sannyas. Mostly. But nowadays, not so much. They're very slow to give sannyas. Oh. So, why not? To remain a brahmachari mostly requires, I was going to say absorption in preaching, but I mean absorption in service. Whatever. Generally, if one is absorbed in preaching, then may start brahmachari.
Maharaj, as brahmacharis, while they are preaching and performing Sankirtan, they become attractive. So,
they become attractive to women.
Yeah, even for devotee women, they're enlivened. And
when they want to get married, and then why do they want to marry the guy who's just struggling to get his life together in Krishna consciousness? They want to marry the brightest, the most confident, the most competent. Well, you have to be detached. What else is there to say? Sometimes women in our movement can be very aggressive in searching out their husband. It's a problem because all the women should get married and all the men should remain unmarried.
Do you like to say something about visiting India?
It probably won't be liked by the temple president. But actually India is very helpful for brahmachari life. I mean, it's not that there's no sex life there. I mean, there's well over 1 billion people in the country, so they didn't all pop out of cauliflower patches. So, but the atmosphere is more reserved. There's no doubt, and it is supportive for brahmacharis. Visiting. Everyone should visit at least Mayapur and Vrindavan. At least in this country, it's not such a poor country that can't afford to send the brahmacharis from time to time. But it's better if a culture is made here, right here in this country, of brahmacharya. You can be long-time brahmacharis, but if there's more, it becomes easier. There should be a culture of that. And yeah, friendship. If there's close bonding between the brahmacharis, then they won't want to get married. If you see someone who's off in a corner by themselves and they don't relate much with others, it's not a well-situated brahmachari. All right, we'll finish there. Hare Krishna. All glories to your service. Preaching in Slovenia is alive. And it's a group effort. It's not just the brahmacharis. There's grihastha devotees also, but the brahmacharis are the core of the preaching team. Is it? One thing to remain a brahmachari, don't have a hateful attitude towards women, then it's hopeless. You remain separate and respectful. Some of them may see that as being unrespectful or disrespectful. But somewhat separate. But not so separate that you can't ever talk to a woman, or because you have to sometimes. Actually, as a sannyasi, sannyasis have more dealings with women than brahmacharis do, generally. Depends what your service is. As a brahmachari. If you're in the kitchen as a cook, you may have a lot of association with women. If you're on traveling sankirtan, you may meet on the street so many women, but you don't. You're not living with any. You're not seeing any same woman again and again and again. Hare Krishna. Brahmacharis shouldn't take sweets, but they can take prasadam sweets. I should have distributed these after the class, there's so many.